Hello, Michael.
Hello.
Hi.
Great.
How are you doing?
Very good, thank you.
That's good. Is it early morning over there?
No, it's 10 o'clock, so it's quite civilized.
Oh, that's quite civilized. Yeah, that's pretty good. So this is going to be your first time here, I think.
It's our first time.
Yeah.
Finally.
Finally.
After several attempts over the last 46 years to get to Australia.
Absolutely. Well, I know you've got a lot of interviews to get through. Well, I think we should probably dive straight in. I'm really fascinated by the Level 42 story because you guys were kind of outliers, but you also strangely fit in to what was happening in the early 80s. This is when I first heard of Level 42. So between 79 and 81, there were a lot of bands playing darker styles of music. And then people started to syncopate a bit more. The bass guitar came to the fore. And then around 82 in the UK, the new pop movement started. So music got a little bit lighter. Also, electronic music was introducing people to a whole new palette of sounds. And then comes Level 42, a band that seemed to embrace funk and jazz. You had a prominent bass guitar, but you also didn't shy away from technology. You yourself were using the keyboards of the day. My first question is, was Level 42 like an amalgam of all these different things happening at once? Or were you guys shunning everything else away and saying you wanted to be your own thing?
I think, that it wasn't so conscious. Basically, our inspiration was the fact that when we met, three of us were drummers. So Mark was a drummer.
That's right.
Phil was a drummer, and I was playing drums as well. I was studying percussion at music college and playing drums in a sort of cover band.
Wow. I didn't know that. Okay.
So our first kind of meetings were like, getting together and talking about who's the best drummer. And what we shared was that we were all into kind of like jazz, funk and fusion, Mahavishnu Orchestra, Return to Forever, Tony Williams' Lifetime, but also Stevie Wonder, James Brown. So it was all about drums and the groove. Billy Cobham, was a massive hero of all of us.
Sure.
So that was we'd sort of get round to each other's flat and listen to records and stuff. And when we eventually started a group, we started as an instrumental group inspired by those musicians that I've mentioned. And we were jamming I'd hired the percussion room at the Guildhall for our first ever jam sessions. And Phil and Boone, the two brothers, Boone played guitar. One of their older brothers, John, was working at MCA Records, and he knew that there was a guy with an independent label that was looking to sign a band. And he told him, "Oh, my brothers are in a band. Do you want to come and check them out?" So Andy came along with his sort of small label hat on and his recording Walkman to a rehearsal studio, and we played through all of our riffs, which basically all they were chord sequences and riffs with a few top lines here and there.
Yeah.
And he liked one of the tunes, and he said, "Make that into a song, and you've got a record deal with my label."
Wow.
And so on the spot, we had to learn to become songwriters. So when we went into the studio, it was with this combination of all of this kind of jazz, funk, fusion influence, but also then having to think, okay, we need to come up with the melody and lyrics and what do we sing about and so on. And then learning on the job, as it were. And the Andy Soika, with his small label experience, led us to Polydor Records, who did distribution. And then they signed us for what was a standard, effectively 5-year, 5-album contract in 1981. But what Andy had done is he knew that there was this movement, underground sort of jazz funk thing, where the kids were dressing up nicely, going to clubs and dancing to quite sophisticated sort of jazz, funk and fusion.
Yeah.
And that was the audience that he plugged us into. We didn't know about this, but we became part of the Brit funk scene because he plugged us into that audience. So that's how we kind of came in.
There was bands like Shakatak and Freeez and people like that. Yeah.
Yes, in fact, Polydor Records signed us and they signed Shakatak as well, because I think at the time they were doing what record companies did, which was like, oh, here's a new movement. Let's see if it's got legs. Let's sign a couple of the bands and see if they do anything.
Oh, nice. One thing I've been wanting to ask you, Mark, being the keyboard player, is that in level 42, Mark King's bass lines tend to be quite busy.
Yeah.
Which is great. We all love his bass playing. But when arranging a song like maybe The Chinese Way, where the bass is so busy and so forward, do you have to choose your keyboard parts wisely or sparingly when it comes to arranging a song? Because there's a lot happening there.
The mountains to Peking.
I learned quite early on that my role as a keyboard player was because when Mark and Phil, the original drummer, when he was playing a groove, as I say, quite busy, and Phil was drumming, it was almost like it filled up so much space, frequency and rhythm wise.
Yeah.
That if I was to try and play something complicated and syncopated, it was just going to get a bit too much. So I basically kept my keyboard parts quite simple and kind of found my spot in the middle. And
it's always really tasteful stuff,
Well, it was probably tasteful because there wasn't that much room to play. So I had to choose wisely, let's say.
Yeah, indeed. The first time we heard of level 42 in Australia was The Sun Goes Down. Which is a great song, but it also highlights the differences between your voice and Mark's voice. So your voice being more pure, I guess, for want of a better word.
Though I live on the edge, time is on my side.
It really suits that melody. And when Mark's voice comes in, it suits that bit of the song.
I don't want to go to war. I don't want to go to war. I said I know what I want and I don't want to go to war.
I don't know whether it's the chorus or the verse. I don't know whether the song has a chorus or a bridge. But so when it comes to level 42 songs, who decides who sings what?
It's different with different songs, but because Phil, the drummer, he'd come up with a lot of melodies, but he tended to come up in the sort of higher range, which is part of the reason why I sing falsetto melodies quite a lot.
Yeah.
Because Phil would come up with a top line in that higher range, and then I would, because he wasn't really a singer, so he'd kind of want me to sing it. And then he'd be writing the lyrics. I mean, him and his brother Boone were the main lyric writers.
The lyricists, really, yeah.
But quite often, whoever came up with the melody would then sing it. So with The Sun Goes Down, we'd put down the backing track without any top lines, and then we started getting around a mic and jamming. I mean, it's quite a funny story because that song was written as part of the Standing in the Light album recording sessions, which we did in LA, being produced by Larry Dunn and Vadim White of Earth, Wind and Fire.
Oh, that's right.
And the day that we started recording The Sun Goes Down, they'd actually gone out for the evening to see this young up and coming artist, which Larry derisively said his name's Prince. And so we were left in the studio to sort of basically muck about with the assistant engineer, and Wally Badaru came up with this da-da-lum-bump-bump-bump riff, which he had, and he had the second part, which is the one that kind of Mark sings over.
Yeah.
And so we stuck those together and we just laid that down. And then the next day they came in and they really liked the vibe. And so we got around the mic and I started singing. And then in the second section, Mark started almost half scatting.
Right.
With different words.
Yeah.
So Phil, very cleverly, he would often take vowel sounds and turn them into lyrics. So he took my vowel sounds and Mark's vowel sounds, and he sort of came up with a lyrical concept that was based very closely on what we'd done on those sort of demo, sort of sung without word vocals.
Yeah.
And so quite a few of the songs like that. I mean, Children Say, for example, from the Running in the Family album, the chorus is my melody, because I'd come up with that melody, so I kind of sing it on the record,
Yeah.
and the verse is, Mark's melody, so he sings it on the record. So we'd sort of worked it out. It wasn't even discussed necessarily. It kind of was more organic.
Speaking of which, I have no question here, but Lessons in Love, the breakdown where you sing your part. Once again, it's your voice that suits that melody at that particular time. And that, of course, went on to be one of your biggest hits, wasn't it? Lessons in Love, I think.
It was, yeah. I mean, it was like #1 in 7 countries in 1986. And probably our most successful single, maybe closely matched by Something About You. But funnily enough, with that melody, I didn't come up with that. I can't remember if it was Mark or Phil who came up with that thing. I think it was probably Mark's, but he decided, or it was decided, that I should sing that part just to give a sort of counter to the rest of the song.
It's a wonderful feature.
I did what I could to make it my own, as it were.
You just mentioned Wally Barrow. I've written down here, there was an unofficial 5th member of Level 42. How did Wally Barrow show up on the Level 42 radar?
Well, it was because previous to the band, Phil, the original drummer, had been, I said, his older brother worked for MCA Records, and the group M was on MCA at the time, as Robert Scott.
That's right.
And pop music. Yeah. And they had to do Top of the Pops, and there was no drummer on the record, but they obviously needed to represent the drums on TV to miming, and so Phil was asked if he would mime on pop music, which he did. Pop music, pop music. And then Robin went into the studio in Switzerland to do an album, after the massive success of pop music. Yeah. And in the studio was Wally Badru. So that's how Phil met Wally. So when Level 42 started, he knew about Wally's abilities, particularly because he was a great synth player and programmer. Whereas I was coming from piano, keyboards, Rhodes. I wasn't really a synth player at the beginning. So when we did our very first single, Love Meeting Love, Phil said, I want to bring Wally in to do some extra keyboards. And at first, of course, I bristled. It's like, wait a minute, I'm the keyboard player. Why do we need another keyboard player? And Phil said, no, but he's a sound merchant. You'll see. And I did. Once Wally came in and started adding his keyboards, they were really coming from a different place, but they were really complementary. Plus, he had all this amazing ability to create what sounded like out of this world sounds, as far as I was concerned. And so we started, realizing that we had a good relationship where we'd come up with different stuff, and he could enhance what we did as a band, like orchestrate and so on. Yeah,
I didn't think about this before, but as a piano player, you learn particular skills. And some may be transferable, but being a keyboard player, like a synth player, it's a different ball game altogether, really, isn't it? Like you know the chords and everything, but sometimes when I watch your playing, you're almost being rhythmic and percussive in what you're playing.
Yes, well, I mean that kind of goes with a lot of the music and the whole the funk and the groove and so on.
Yeah,
and sometimes Wally would come in and he'd often in the recording sessions, he'd sort of come into the sessions later. We'd have started. And so he'd come into a track that was in progress, and then he'd find something that would often either float above it, or sometimes it would be sort of in the groove. But he just had such an ear for sounds, and he would spend ages tweaking a sound and getting the engineer to EQ it just such, and putting a bit of chorus on it and some echo. And we'd be looking at our watches going, Wally, how long is this going to take? And he's like, no, it'll be worth it. Just be patient.
Just be patient. Okay, well, while we're on the keyboards, you're playing, I think, the World Machine tour on this tour, is it?
To be honest, I don't know what we're playing. And I think Mark knows what we're playing, and I haven't seen the set list yet. So we did a big World Machine tour last year, so
Yeah.
maybe we're going to be doing that. In any event, we always obviously play songs from the World Machine album because it gave us one of our biggest hits. And
It was big, yeah.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask, like in the early 80s, you were using the classic Yamaha DX7 Prophet 5, I think. Is that the PPG Wave you used to use as well?
My rig in the 80s, yes, it was basically that, yeah.
And
Prophet 5, DX stuff, PPG.
In this day and age, do you tour with all these keyboards, or are there virtual plugins now that you can recreate those sounds?
I haven't gone to the virtual plugin thing. I mean, I do that a lot in the studio, but on the road, I kind of like to have hardware synths.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of quick program changes, and I'm sort of used to jumping from one keyboard to the other or doing quick patch changes. I mean, effectively, my live rig with Level 42 is a Rhodes, the kind of the descendants of the Prophet 5. So I've got a Dave Smith, Prophet 8 and a Rev 2.
Right.
And then I've got some Roland keyboards. I've got a Roland digital piano, RD2000, and another, JDXA hybrid kind of digital analog synth.
Okay.
And then some of the keyboard stuff is actually on track on the laptop.
Right. Okay.
Because effectively I'm trying to reproduce multiple overdubs of two keyboard players as one player on stage, because Wally isn't on stage with us, never has been. No. He'd always been a studio person.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Yeah, and although my back, every time, if I had to move the Rhodes on my own, my back says, why don't you get a virtual plug-in, Michael? I just sort of haven't got round to it yet for live stuff, but I know that stuff is getting so good that I probably will end up doing that, but I just haven't gotten there yet.
Nice. Okay. This question is just for me, because I've always been fascinated by the American show Saturday Night Live. And you guys played Saturday Night Live, didn't you, back in the day?
We did do Saturday Night Live, yes.
Was that a day of constant rehearsing, or did you guys just come up and play? I think you play twice on a night, isn't it? You play a dress rehearsal and then on air. I
mean, we would have obviously done some kind of, at least a camera rehearsal, if not an audio, because it is live, because we did play live on the show, I remember. Because there was a big fuss about the fact that we wanted our front of house engineer to be able to do the TV mix.
Oh,
and
really?
because it's American, because of unions, of course, he wasn't allowed to do that.
Yeah.
But he was allowed to be in
the room,
in the mixing room, and but obviously not touch anything. But yeah, so we were concerned that that the sound would work, and I think it did.
It did. You could see it online somewhere. I think it's not YouTube, but I did see it somewhere where you're introduced, and as soon as the band start playing, it sounds really good, because sometimes on those television shows it doesn't quite translate. But
yes, and we've had experience of that obviously previously. So yeah.
Whereas I imagine on Top of the Pops you didn't play, did you? That's just a miming thing, isn't it?
Pretty much the whole history, most of the history of Top of the Pops is that artists mimed, which was a whole other art in trying to mime convincingly.
Yes.
Especially when you've got cameras here, and in the early days there's cameras here, and then the sound of your record is coming out of a tiny little speaker up there.
Yeah.
And we're trying to sort of feel the music so we can mime to this sort of, plastic cymbals and everything. And we're saying, can you turn it up so that we can hear it? And then the producer's saying, sorry, it has to be that volume, because the cameramen need to be able to hear the director's instructions about where to go for their next shot and so on. So, and then there's an audience standing there who are thinking, most of them thinking that we're actually playing it. And isn't it obvious that we're miming? But apparently not.
Apparently not. Oh, well, that's great. You just gave me a bit of insight into Top of the Pops and Saturday Night Live. That's great. I was going to ask if there was any surprises on this tour, as in songs, but you've already told me that you don't know what you're playing.
I don't know what we're playing, but I mean the biggest, it's not a surprise really, but the biggest surprise would just be the fact that we're actually playing live in Australia.
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
like I said, we've been trying to come to Australia. The last time it was in 2020. We had this whole Australia Asian tour leg planned for the 40th anniversary of the band, but of course we all know what happened or what didn't happen in 2020.
Yes.
So yeah.
Okay. Well, it's great to have you guys down here. But my friends and I, we were living in Brisbane at the time, and we have a good friend who's a bass player. As soon as he heard Mark King's bass playing, he tried to play everything that was on your albums. That was how we were introduced to Level 42. And then we moved to Sydney, and consequently, we've always been big fans. So it's really great to finally have you down here. It's next January, I think.
Yes, we're playing it. Is it the Enmore Theatre?
Yeah, in Sydney, you're at the Enmore Theatre on the January the 24th. So,
right. Yes.
So we'll definitely be there. Thanks for talking to us, Mike. This has been really good.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
And I'll definitely be seeing you on January the 24th next year.
Fantastic. I can't wait.
Okay. We'll see you then.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.